Imagine you are managing the construction of a massive, ultra-modern airport terminal in a bustling, high-stakes city like Mumbai. This is not just a building, it is a city within a city. You have one highly specialized team dedicated to the complex baggage handling system, another team working on the high security check-in software, and a third team building the automated boarding gates that must interact with passenger biometric data. If these three teams never speak to each other, if they are operating in their own private worlds, you end up with a catastrophic coordination crisis. You might end up with baggage belts that physically don't align with the dimensions of the security scanners, or automated boarding gates that simply cannot read the ticket formats generated by the check-in software. This is exactly what we call the Tower of Babel problem in large-scale projects. In the world of disciplined Agile, we define this as the challenge of cross-team coordination. When you scale Agile beyond a single team, the biggest risk to your success is not technical. It is the risk of teams working in isolated silos and accidentally building expensive, beautiful things that just don't fit together when the time comes to integrate them. The Scrum of Scrums is our primary architectural tool to prevent this. Formally, it is a technique to scale Scrum up to large multi-team groups, focusing intensely on coordination and integration. In simple words, it is just a meeting of the messengers. You take one representative from each team and they meet regularly to ensure the different parts of the project are actually speaking the same language. Without this, you have 3 or more teams running at full speed in 3 different directions, and you don't find out they are fundamentally misaligned until it is too late to fix the foundation. So now that we've mastered the core realization that scaling Agile requires a dedicated communication layer, you might be wondering how we decide who should actually attend these meetings and what they should talk about to make them truly useful. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the structure and purpose of the Scrum of Scrums meeting. Let's go back to our airport construction project in Mumbai. You certainly don't bring all 100 people from those 3 teams into one massive room. That would be an absolute nightmare for productivity. Instead, you have each team pick a messenger, a trusted lead or developer who knows their team's daily progress and hurdles intimately. They meet for 15 focus minutes, exactly like a daily stand-up. They aren't there to solve every complex engineering problem on the spot. They are there to identify impediments that cross team boundaries. For example, if the baggage team realizes they need an extra data feed from the security team to finish their belt calibration, they raise it here. By definition, the Scrum of Scrums is designed to coordinate the work of multiple teams that are dependent on each other. Simply put, it is your early warning system. You have probably seen this disaster at the office where someone finds a bug and then spends 3 weeks sending confused emails to the wrong people trying to get it fixed while the project sits idle. In a proper Scrum of Scrums, that issue would be raised in the morning and the right people would be connected by the afternoon. It saves weeks of wasted time and eliminates the frustration of being blocked by someone you have never even met in another department. So now that we have mastered how to structure these meetings for maximum efficiency, you might be wondering how we handle the intense technical pressure when 2 teams are working on the same piece of code or the same physical space at the same time. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the vital role of interface management. Think about the airport terminal again. The baggage team and the security team both need to interact with the central power grid and the building's main IT backbone. If the baggage team upgrades their section to a new power standard without telling the security team, the entire wing of the airport might go dark when they flip the switch. These critical points of intersection are called interfaces. In disciplined Agile, we talk about interface management as the proactive coordination of how 2 or more teams interact with shared assets. In simple terms, is the look before you leap rule. You have to identify where your team's work touches another team's work. If you are building a website, your team might be building the checkout button, but the payment team is building the gateway it connects to. If you change the design of that button, their code might break instantly. Interface management in a Scrum of Scrums means explicitly discussing these touch points before the code is written, not after it is already broken. It is the difference between a project that hums along like a symphony and a project that suffers from constant, mysterious, and expensive crashes. So, now that we've mastered the art of spotting these technical intersections early, you might be wondering how we maintain this high level of coordination when the teams are literally sitting in different countries. Well, that brings us right into our next step, the reality of coordinating across time zones and physical distances. Now imagine our airport team is even more complex. The software team is in Bengaluru, the hardware engineering team is in Germany, and the project manager is in London. Coordinating a Scrum of Scrums when the sun is setting for one team and rising for another feels impossible. But it isn't. The secret is to shift from synchronous meetings, where everyone has to be on a call at once, to intentional asynchronous communication. In disciplined Agile, we emphasize the importance of creating a single source of truth. This means your project dashboards, your shared code repositories, and your documentation must be updated in real time so that no team is ever working from yesterday's data. Put simply, if you aren't in the same room, your data has to do the heavy lifting for you. You've probably seen this at the office. A team makes a change to a shared database, forgets to update the shared documentation, and the other team spends all night trying to figure out why their system is failing. That is the opposite of coordination. By treating your shared information as the most valuable asset you have, you make cross-team coordination possible even when you are thousands of miles apart. So, now that we've mastered the discipline of keeping our information synced across distance, you might be wondering how we handle the inevitable human conflict when two teams disagree on the best way to move forward. Well, that brings us right into our next step, the role of negotiation and compromise. Back to our airport project. The baggage team says we need the security team to delay their upgrade so we can finish our testing. But the security team says we have a massive deadline from the board of directors that we cannot miss. This is not a technical problem, it is a priority problem. In the Scrum of Scrums, you aren't just reporting status, you are negotiating. Formally, this is known as cross-team negotiation, the process of aligning priorities when the resources are limited. In simple language, it's the give and take of the workplace. You have likely seen teams become bitter enemies because they refuse to budge on their own requirements even when it hurts the project as a whole. A good Scrum Master in this context helps the team look at the big picture. They ask what is best for the entire airport instead of what is best for my individual team's metrics. This negotiation requires honesty, transparency, and a genuine willingness to compromise for the common good. It turns a group of competing territorial teams into a single cohesive delivery unit. So now that we've mastered the delicate art of negotiating and aligning our team priorities, you might be wondering what happens when this structure itself gets too big and starts to fail under its own weight. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the concept of recursive scaling. Finally, imagine your airport project grows from 3 teams to 30 teams. Suddenly, a single Scrum of Scrums is too large to manage. You now have 50 people in a room and the meeting takes 3 hours. You have successfully scaled, but now you have a new problem. You have scaled the bureaucracy too much. This is where we use recursive scaling. Simply put, this means you don't just have one Scrum of Scrums, you have a Scrum of Scrums. It is a nested approach where your coordination layers perfectly mirror your team structure. By definition, recursive scaling is the application of the same coordination principles at every single level of the organization, ensuring that the critical message from the bottom floor reaches the top floor without being distorted. It's like a phone tree or a highly efficient military chain of command. You keep the group small and focused, and you create strong, clear links between the layers. We have covered the theory, the mechanics, the interfaces, the distance, the negotiation, and the growth. You now have the full architectural toolkit to lead teams of any size, keeping them aligned, efficient, and most importantly, moving toward a single unified goal. You are now prepared to build anything, no matter how big the project becomes, because you understand that coordination is not an accident, it is a discipline.